We are Group 8, the problem solvers, and I'm Johan. I'll be introducing the problem that we're going to be solving. So, with a population of over 270 million people, Indonesia is one of the largest countries in the world. Despite the country's growth over the past few decades, roughly 18 million of the population, about 10%, does not have access to clean water. Pollution has corrupted a lot of the freshwater sources, and the infrastructure to access the remaining sources are not there. Not just clean water, but sanitation in general is severely lacking. Due to the low standard of sanitation in Indonesia, many sources of water pollution come from the people themselves. Many Indonesians do not have a designated system to get rid of wastewater, nor do they have access to piped water. Around 80% of the Indonesian population is forced to rely on nearby rivers and groundwater for bathing, drinking, washing, and any other activities that need water. Without the infrastructure available to dispose of all this wastewater properly, most of it is going back into that single water source. Using one source for all these activities without purifying the water leads to many people drinking unsafe water and contracting deadly diseases. Diarrheal diseases from contaminated water are responsible for deaths of a substantial number of children under the age of 5.
My name is Julian Perez Velasquez, and we are trying to solve the water crisis in Indonesia by using the Janicki Omni processor, or the JOP. The JOP is a decentralized waste system that treats biowaste to produce water and electricity. Many people in Indonesia don't have access to a system that disposes of waste, so the JOP can act as the primary system to take in all waste. Part of the reason Indonesia has problems with clean water is that waste is not disposed of properly and ends up in nearby water sources. So, having the JOP can greatly reduce the contamination levels of water. The processor generates the desired clean water along with some byproducts of electricity, heat, and ash product. The production of electricity is an added benefit that the JOP brings that can help the community around the facility. It is also flexible in that it can adjust the inputs to prioritize specific outputs over others. It would be critical to optimize water production in the case of the selected population, as that is what is being focused on through this challenge. The JOP is currently being tested in live environments in Dakar, Senegal. This is the only place in the world that is currently using this technology. While its operation has been showing promise within that project zone, the new technology must still see a longer period of testing before undergoing widespread implementation. The implementation of the JOP is mainly related to the grand challenge of providing access to clean water. The JOP uses an unorthodox method to produce clean water as the water is sourced from wet biosolids. The water is filtered, condensed, and separated to produce clean water that is 99.9% pure. The JOP may be the future for many developing nations as it has a fairly cheap startup cost of $1.5 million. In addition to providing access to clean water, the JOP also solves the issue of sanitation, which ties into the challenge of providing access to clean water.
The Omni processor takes an organic waste, which enters a dryer. Some of the organic material turns into a hot vapor. The vapor goes through a fine filter using an immense pressure differential in order to separate water vapor from contaminants. This process also removes any lingering odors. The vapor is condensed into a liquid, which is then separated into water and any remaining material. This purification method distills water using a method resembling reverse osmosis. Meanwhile, the organic material from the dryer can now be used as a fuel for a boiler to create steam for drying more waste. This steam is also used to spin a turbine, generating electricity, which provides power for the surrounding neighborhood. The water, having been purified, can then be stored for use by local inhabitants without risk of sickness.
My name is Aryan Patel. Obtaining the initial startup funds of $1.5 million might prove a challenge in the developing countries where the Omni processor would be built. In regards to the existing one in Senegal, it was built on philanthropic funds. New projects would require the convincing of local authorities to invest in this potential solution. The Omni processor requires laborers to both build the structure and to operate it afterwards. This would create a number of new jobs, but it has to be assumed that there would be individuals qualified to take them on. The transport of fecal sludge to the Omni processor poses a challenge, as that would require a look into the infrastructure of an area in which it would be implemented. At a minimum, a reinforced concrete slab foundation, water drain, and utility connections are required. Additional requirements specific to the site may be necessary. The concepts of the JOP would have to be presented to various groups of interest in an attempt to gather the necessary funding to start the project up. Highlights would include the primary production of clean water and secondary production of energy, mentioning the current success of the plant in Dakar and the self-sustainment of the plant. An adequate site would also have to be chosen among the many varying regions suffering from the clean water scarcity in Indonesia. Multiple factors would be considered, and the region that best accommodates the construction of the facility would be chosen.